name is Chris Sturhan. Welcome to another episode of Drinks from Eddie Muller's Noir Bar. Each week I take a chapter from the book Eddie Muller's Noir Bar, Cocktails Inspired by the World of Film Noir, and I talk about the film in that chapter and I make the drink associated with it. Today marks the 25th episode of this series, which puts me halfway through the book. And what a long, strange, wonderful, boozy trip it's been, I gotta say. Now, today we are going to be looking at the film The Sweet Smell of Success and enjoying the drink, the Martini. Now, The Sweet Smell of Success was released in 1957. It stars Burt Lancaster and Tony Curtis. Um, it's one of those film noir films that kind of proves that you don't need guns, don't need back alleys, you don't need mobsters to have a good film noir, because all of the noir business in this film is taking place in very posh restaurants and nightclubs and bars and things like that, not in seedy back alleys or anything like that. Now, the story involves Tony Curtis's character, Sidney Falco. He is a press agent. His clients hire him to get them mentioned in newspapers and radio, TV, magazines, etc. And the plum in his world is the column of J.J. Hunziker, played by Burt Lancaster. Burt Lancaster is the most popular newspaper columnist in New York, which kind of makes him the newspaper columnist and makes him probably the most popular newspaper columnist in the United States and probably the world. Um, at the start of the film, Sidney Falco's not doing real well. J.J. Hunziker had asked him to do a favor. It seems J.J. Hunziker has a little sister, and by little sister, she's probably 20, 24, something like that. And she has fallen in love with a jazz musician, which is, according to J.J. Hunziker, is definitely not good enough for her. And so he has Sidney Falco, before the start of the movie, do something to break it up. But the breakup doesn't take. They don't really even say what happens in the film, just that Sidney Falco says it's the dirtiest deed he's ever done in his life. But presumably by the end of the movie it's not, because I can't imagine it being any worse than what he does in this film. Great film, great performances by all concerned. Sidney Falco is totally Tony Curtis's character is totally reprehensible. And Burt Lancaster as J.J. Hunziker is probably worse, because he uses his power and influence to make people do things bad, which in my book makes him worse than the person pressured to do this. As I said, there really isn't much, there are no criminals in this movie, but if you think about it, if they could prove what they had done in this film, I'm sure in a court of law, I'm sure it would be considered criminal, because there's obviously lying and coercion, but also blackmail and extortion and that sort of thing. Supporting cast also very good. The woman who plays the sister, Susan Harrison, hadn't seen her in very much. In fact, when I looked her up on IMDb, the only thing I really recognized her from was she was on an episode of The Twilight Zone. She has probably about a dozen IMDb credits, but she was on an episode of The Twilight Zone where she plays the ballerina. And if you know Twilight Zone, you probably know what episode I'm talking about. And she was very good as the sister. Martin Milner plays the jazz musician. Does a pretty reasonable job of faking jazzy guitar riffs. Another standout in the cast is Sam Levine, who plays Martin Milner's agent, who kind of tries to keep him under control when things start going bad as a result of the machinations of Sidney Falco and J.J. Hunziker. Another wonderful performance in this film is by an actress named Barbara Nichols. And you may not know the name, but she's been in a lot of films, and she almost always plays kind of a bimbo, a stripper, a cocktail waitress, a gangster's mall, that type of thing. But she's really wonderful in this, and she ends up in a position where she's been fired from her job and makes the mistake of asking Sidney Falco for a favor, and he wants something in return, and what he wants in return is for her to sleep with somebody. And it's not that she never sleeps with somebody, but she doesn't want to do it because she owes a favor to Sidney Falco. Very, very good performance, very good film. Um, the character of J.J. Hunziker was apparently based on Walter Winchell. I really hope he wasn't as bad as J.J. Hunziker, but maybe he was. Um, the film kind of tanked at the box office, like many great film noir films, because I think people just weren't ready for things as dark as what some of the film noirs gave them, and this film is definitely one of those. Apparently, Walter Winchell was very happy that it tanked at the box office because it got out that it was kind of modeled after him. So the fact that people didn't embrace this film made him feel a little bit better about himself. Um, the drink we're going to have is the martini. Now, the martini is actually the perfect drink for this film. It's all set in very posh New York locations, 1950s. So it's that's the drink that they would be drinking, and that's the drink that J.J. Hunziker would be drinking. Um, the version of the martini is the version that Eddie Muller has in his book that he got from the surrealist film director Louis Buñuel, who had that recipe in his memoirs, and that's where Eddie Muller got the basic drink from. Now, normally, what I would do in this series is I would make the drink on screen, but I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. About 2 months ago, I was on YouTube and I found a video on the TCM channel of Eddie Muller making his martini. And it's possibly a little bit different than what's in the book, but it's the same basic recipe. And he also answers the question of if you're doing cocktails on the Noir Alley set, why are you doing a martini and not bourbon, which is kind of the big drink? And that's kind of the question behind his book is well, in noir, almost everybody just drinks bourbon straight, or on the rocks or in water, whatever. And these are all, definitely cocktails. Well, he's got a good answer for that, and you really should watch that. And he'll show you how to make the drink. And it's well worth the watch. I will put the link in the description. I'm going to take a short break and make the drink, and I'll come back and tell you what I think about Eddie's version of the martini, and we'll enjoy that. And then I'll sign off a little bit early today. All right, thanks for coming. I hope you stick around for the drink. Bye. And we are back, and this is the martini in question, according to Eddie Muller's recipe. Now that's nice. Then again, I do like gin. I made it with Plymouth gin, which is what he recommends. I have a gin that I think I probably would enjoy this a little better with, but that's a good martini. I think my problem with martinis have been that they were a little too heavy on the vermouth, but this has just a kiss of vermouth. Now, you may have noticed that the Noir bar here, or my facsimile for the Noir bar, looks a little different. That's because Tuesday was Halloween, and we still had a lot of the Halloween stuff up, so I figured I would just go with it. Part of the reason for the extra decorations here as well was that my 27, soon to be 28-year-old son, no, 28, soon to be 29. Wow. Okay. My 28-year-old son got married on Tuesday of this week on Halloween Day, and we had a little get together, and so we still have a lot of the Halloween decorations up. So I'm going to, rather than doing a toast from the back of the Noir bar. I'm going to do a toast to my son Matthew and his lovely bride Chloe, and say cheers. And do stick around. Follow the link to Eddie Muller's video on how to make this wonderful drink. Thanks. Bye.